Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
They say the worst predators don't roar. They wait. They watch. They learn the rhythm of your breathing before they strike. I didn't believe that until I saw what a human could do with nothing but patience and a notebook. Until I watched Dr. Kia Okoye turn an entire hunting expedition into a funeral procession. And she never even raised her voice. The Vraks don't do quiet. We are a people of thunder and war song, of hunts that span continents, and trophies mounted in great halls where the walls themselves seem to pulse with ancestral pride. Our younglings cut their teeth on the bones of apex predators. Our elders were the pelts of creatures that could swallow starships whole. We are, without question, the galaxy's most celebrated hunters, a reputation earned through 10,000 years of blood and glory across 100 worlds. So when the Galactic Conservation Collective insisted we take on a human observer for our sacred Kethril hunt, we laughed. Then we saw her. Dr. Kia Okoye stood maybe half the height of our smallest juvenile. Thin as a reed stalk, skin the color of burnt soil, hair twisted into small coils she kept tied back with some kind of fabric strip that looked like it had been recycled from medical gauze. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, bore no scars. Just a dull gray jumpsuit with pockets, and a satchel that sagged under the weight of, I kid you not, Astra's paper notebook star. Paper. Not data crystals. Not hollow slates. Actual processed plant matter bound with adhesive, filled with markings made by a primitive chemical stick. My clutch brother Vorn took one look at her, and made the throat click that means prey animal. The sound echoed through our landing bay. 60 of the Vraksh Confederacy's finest hunters, all doing the same calculus. This creature wouldn't survive first moonrise. She didn't react, just adjusted the strap on her satchel and waited, eyes moving across us like she was counting something. Not our weapons, not our size, something else. I was hunt captain. Protocol demanded I greet her, though every instinct screamed to simply ignore the insult of her presence and begin the Kethril as tradition demanded. But the collective had been clear. We accept the observer, or we lose access to 3 entire star systems worth of game worlds. Politics. The cancer that eats honor. I approach her with my crest fully raised, spine ridge extended, all 4 arms spread in what any sane species would recognize as a dominance display. Observer, I rumbled. You understand what you have requested? The Kethril hunt spans 16 planetary rotations. The terrain is hostile. The prey is lethal. We do not slow our pace. We do not soften our methods. If you fall behind, you'll leave me. Her voice was so soft, I almost missed it. No challenge in it. No fear either. Just stating fact. Understand, Hunt Captain Thorvik. She knew my name. I hadn't given it. You have studied our culture, I said, trying to find the insult in this, the angle of disrespect I could use to justify sending her back to whatever soft world had spawned her. I've studied everything. She pulled out one of those paper abominations. Somehow she'd drawn our entire crew. Individual portraits. Accurate down to the pattern of scale scars on Vorn's secondary jaw. You lost your clutch mate, Senna, 4 years ago during the Korvax deep hunt. You wear her talon sheath on your left primary arm. Vorn there still favors his right leg from the tusk wound he got on Praxis 9. Your blade master Krell hasn't slept properly since his daughter failed her first hunt trial. The bay went silent. She wasn't guessing. Every detail was exact, personal, the kind of thing you'd only know from intelligence reports, or how. Vorn's voice came out strangled. She closed the notebook. Your species has been conducting these hunts for generations. You broadcast them. Celebrate them. The data's all public. You just have to care enough to look. She met my eyes. That's when I noticed hers weren't soft at all. Dark brown, almost black, and utterly still. Ikare. I should have killed her right there. Instead, I turned away. Suit yourself. When the rendering beast tears you in half, do not expect us to retrieve your remains for burial. We feed our dead to the next hunt. I know, she said. It's in the verses of Fong and Claw, 3rd stanza. She'd read our sacred texts. In our language, the Kethril launch proceeded as planned. We boarded the dropships in traditional hunting formation. Scouts forward, heavy killers at the flanks, trackers dispersed throughout. Dr. Okoye was assigned to my personal ship, which meant I'd have the honor of watching her die up close. She didn't speak during the descent, just sat in the jump seat, strapped in with all 6 safety restraints like she'd done this 1,000 times, and wrote in that notebook. Her handwriting was small, cramped, the markings almost too tiny to see. I caught a glimpse once, diagrams, measurement notations, gravitational variance calculations. She was mapping the descent trajectory by hand. You do understand, Krell said from the pilot's seat, that the rendering beast is 11 meters tall, armored in exobone plate, and possesses a neurotoxin spit that liquefies muscle tissue in under 30 seconds. MMHM. She didn't look up. It can detect heartbeats from 3 kilometers away. MMHM. It has never been successfully hunted by anything smaller than a Vraksh warpack. MMHM. Krell shot me a look. I shrugged. Let her learn the hard way. We touched down in the Kethril Rift just after first moonrise, that golden hour when the twin suns set and the killing light begins. The air tasted like sulfur and iron blood scent, we call it. Good omen. The rift stretched before us. A canyon system 400 kilometers long, carved through stone that predated most spacefaring civilizations, filled with enough apex predators to stock 100 death worlds. The rendering beast territory lay at the far end. To reach it, we'd have to cross the domains of the spine crawlers, the magma WIRMS, the shrieking flock, and half a dozen other things with names that translated poorly but killed efficiently. Dr. Okoye stepped off the ramp, looked at the canyon, and said, "Beautiful." Vorn laughed. "You won't think so. When the spine crawlers start peeling the skin off you, they won't." "Excuse me." She was already walking toward the canyon edge, notebook out, making those tiny marks again. Spine crawlers are ambush hunters. They rely on thermal differentials to select prey, anything with a body temperature variance of more than 6 degrees from ambient. I've been taking suppressants for 3 days. My surface temp is within 2 degrees of environmental standard. They'll register me as a rock. Silence. Also, she continued, not turning around, their mating season. They'll be focused on territorial displays near the hot vents, not on hunting. We'll want to avoid the eastern ridge. I looked at Krell. He looked at Vorn. Vorn looked at me. How do you know their mating season? I asked. Your hunt logs. Last 4 seasons, you reported increased aggression in the eastern sectors during this orbital period. Cross-referenced with environmental data and reproductive biology studies published by the collective's Xenobiology division. She glanced back, and I swear there was something like pity in her eyes. You've been hunting them for years, and never noticed the pattern? The first night, we made camp in a defensible position. Natural rock formation, 3 escape routes, elevated firing positions. Standard protocol. Dr. Okoye didn't question it, didn't offer suggestions. Just set up her bedroll away from the fire, ate her ration bar in silence, and went back to writing in that damned notebook. I assigned Krell to watch her. Not for her safety, for ours. Something about her was wrong, and I couldn't place it. She hasn't blinked in 4 minutes. Krell reported an hour later. What? She's watching the perimeter, northwest quadrant, and she hasn't blinked. I moved to observe. He was right. Dr. Okoye sat with her back against stone, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond our firelight, utterly motionless except for the slow rise and fall of her breathing. There's nothing out there, I said. Sensors are clean. I know. We stood there watching her watch nothing for another 3 minutes. Then she stood up, walked to her pack, pulled out a small cylindrical object, and tossed it into the darkness. It was a flare. The light erupted maybe 40 meters out, and in that brief crimson flash, I saw them. 6 shrieking flock scouts, frozen mid-approach, their thermal adaptive skin lit up like targets. The entire camp erupted. Weapons charged. Battle cries echoed. We killed all 6 in under 20 seconds. Easy prey, caught off guard, no contest. When a body stopped twitching, I turned to Dr. Okoye. How did you know? Wind patterns shifted 7 minutes ago. Smelled different. You've got good equipment, but you're relying on it too much. She settled back against a rock. Also, one of them sneezed. Sneezed? They have a respiratory tick when they're downwind of phosphorus compounds. Your flares leak trace amounts during storage. I read about it in a field study from 30 years ago. Vor made the throat click again. But this time it didn't mean prey animal. It meant something else entirely. The second day, we entered spine crawler territory. Dr. Okoye was right. They ignored her completely. Walked right past her, close enough that she could have touched them, and they registered nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't speed up, just maintained her slow, even pace, and kept writing in that notebook. One of them did notice Vorn. He'd forgotten to recalibrate his cooling suit, and his body temp spiked half a degree when we crossed a thermal vent. The spine crawler was on him in seconds, all 8 legs and dripping proboscis, ready to pump him full of digestive enzymes. Dr. Okoye threw a rock, not at the spine crawler, at the ground, 3 meters to the left. The creature's head snapped toward the sound. Vorn fired his plasma lance point blank into its neural cluster. It dropped, twitching. Thanks, Vorn panted. MMHM. That was it. No self-congratulation. No expectation of gratitude. Just that soft sound, and back to the notebook. That night, I asked her directly, "Why are you here?" She looked up from her writing. The firelight made her eyes look even darker. To observe. Observe what? How we kill. How you think about killing. She tilted her head slightly. Your species treats hunting as sacred. Combat as poetry. You ritualize violence until it becomes art. I wanted to understand why. And do you? No. She closed the notebook. But I understand you. The way she said it made my spine ridge contract. We are the greatest hunters in known space, I said, hearing the defensiveness in my own voice. We have conquered death worlds you couldn't survive standing on. I know. You're incredible. No sarcasm. Completely sincere. But you're also predictable. Explain. She pulled out her notebook again, open to a page covered in diagrams. You follow patterns. Hunting formations haven't changed in 300 years. Equipment loadouts are standardized. Engagement protocols are documented and broadcast. You're so proud of your traditions that you've turned them into a manual for anyone who wants to study you. You think you could hunt better than us? No. She met my eyes again. That stillness. That absolute calm. I think I can hunt you. The temperature in the camp dropped. Vorn stood up, all 4 arms flexing. That sounds like a challenge. It's an observation. Dr. Okoye's voice didn't change pitch. Your protocols are designed for honorable combat between equals. One-on-one, you'd tear me apart in seconds. But hunting isn't about honor. It's about information, adaptation, and patience. She tapped the notebook. I've been tracking your movements for 3 days. I know how many steps you take between scans. I know which of you checks the perimeter first. I know Krell scratches his left secondary arm when he's nervous, and Vorn clicks his jaw when he's about to charge. She stood up, and even though she was half our size, something about the movement made every hunter in that camp tense. If I wanted you dead, she said, voice still soft, still calm, you'd never see me coming. You just stop waking up. Silence. Then she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. But I'm not here to hunt you. I'm here to watch you hunt. She sat back down, opened the notebook, and to learn why you think you're so much better at it than anyone else. I should have sent her back right then. I didn't, because for the first time in 30 years of hunting, I felt like prey. The third day, we reached the Magma WYRM nesting grounds. Protocol demanded we go around. Even Vraksh war packs don't engage WYRMS during brooding season. The mothers are 20 meters long, armored in living stone, and breathe superheated gas that can melt hull plating. Dr. Okoye studied the terrain for maybe 2 minutes, then pointed at a path that cut straight through the nesting grounds. "That's suicide," I said. "It's faster. The WYRMS will detect us before we're halfway through." "No, they won't." She pulled out a small device from her satchel. Looked like a standard atmospheric regulator, but modified. This emits a subsonic frequency that mimics WRM brood distress calls. The mothers will think their eggs are in danger and focus inward on their nests. We'll have a 30-minute window. "How do you know that will work?" "Because I tested it last night while you were all asleep. There's a juvenile nesting site 6 kilometers west. I walked through it twice." Vorn stared at her. "You did what?" "Needed to verify the frequency range. Your species documents behavior patterns, but never tests the underlying mechanisms." She started walking toward the nesting grounds. "Science isn't about knowing things. It's about checking if you're wrong." We followed her. Because what else were we going to do? She was right. The WYRMS ignored us completely, too focused on their broods to register our presence. We crossed the nesting grounds in 23 minutes, and not a single mother even turned her head. When we reached the far side, Krell grabbed Dr. Okoye by the shoulder. She didn't resist, just looked at his hand like it was a piece of machinery she was evaluating. "You risked your life for a theory," he said. "I risked my life for data." She gently removed his hand. "I didn't risk yours until I knew it worked." "That's insane." "No." She adjusted her satchel. "That's the scientific method." By the 5th day, the entire hunting party had reorganized itself around her. Not consciously, not deliberately, but we'd started checking with her before making camp, before choosing routes, before engaging prey. She never gave orders, never raised her voice, just offered observations in that same soft tone, and we listened. Because she was always right. She predicted the shrieking flock's aerial ambush 6 hours before it happened. She identified a sinkhole network that would have killed half our party. She found a water source we'd missed on 3 previous hunts. And she did it all by watching, writing in that notebook, and waiting for us to ask the right questions. "You're not just an observer," I said to her on the 6th night. "No, you're studying us like we're the prey." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she reached into her satchel and pulled out a different notebook, this one older, more worn. "Humans have been hunting for 200,000 years, she said. "We didn't start with weapons. We started with persistence. We'd track prey for days, sometimes weeks, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't need to be stronger. We just needed to outlast everything else." She opened the notebook to a page covered in sketches. Human figures running, human figures waiting, human figures watching. Every species has advantages. You're stronger, faster, better armed. But we learned to win by learning about our prey faster than they could learn about us. That's why you're here. That's why I'm everywhere. She closed the notebook. The galaxy thinks humans are weak because we don't roar. We don't display. We don't perform our strength like it's theater. She met my eyes. We just wait for you to show us how you work. And then we become better at being you than you are. The 8th day, we found a rendering beast. It stood at the center of a bone field that stretched for kilometers. The remains of every creature that had ever challenged it and lost. 11 meters of muscle and armor and rage, with eyes that tracked us the moment we crested the ridge. Traditional approach? Vorn asked, checking his weapons. I looked at Dr. Okoye. She was staring at the beast, notebook open, but she hadn't written anything yet. "What do you see?" I asked her. "Scar tissue on the left forelimb. Favors the right side. Breathing pattern suggests damaged lung from an old injury." She tilted her head. "It's dying." "What? Maybe 2 more years. 3 at most. The neurotoxin glands are overactive, compensating for failing muscle strength. It knows it's getting weaker." She closed the notebook. "That's why it's so aggressive. It's not defending territory. It's defending dignity." The rendering beast roared, and the sound rattled my bones. Dr. Okoye didn't flinch. "You came here to kill it," she said. "To prove the apex. To mount its head in your hall and tell stories about your glory. That is our way." "I know," She looked at me. But what if you're wrong? About what? About what hunting means. She walked forward toward the beast, hands empty, moving with that same slow, steady pace she'd maintained for 8 days. The rendering beast tracked her, head lowering, toxin glands swelling. Dr. Okoye, she held up one hand, palm out. Not to me, to the beast. And she stopped. Just stood there 40 meters from death, and waited. The rendering beast stared at her. She stared back. Neither moved. 1 minute passed. 2. 5. Then, the beast made a sound I'd never heard before. Low, almost subsonic, rattling through its chest like grief. Dr. Okoye nodded once. Then, she turned around and walked back to us. It's done, she said. We didn't kill it, Vorn protested. I know. She pulled out her notebook, made one final mark. But you learned something more valuable than a trophy. Which is... She looked at all of us, and for the first time, I saw something other than that clinical calm in her eyes. Pity. That the scariest thing in the galaxy isn't the creature that roars the loudest. She closed the notebook. It's the one that knows when to walk away. We left the rendering beast alive. It felt wrong. Against everything we believed. But as we walked back through the Kethril Rift, I kept thinking about that moment. Dr. Okoye standing in front of 11 meters of death. Not because she was brave, but because she'd already calculated the outcome and knew the beast wouldn't charge. She'd hunted it without killing it. She'd won without fighting. And she'd taught us that we'd been measuring the wrong thing all along. On the extraction ship, Krell asked her the question we were all thinking. How did you know it wouldn't attack? Dr. Okoye looked up from her notebook. Because I watched you for 8 days. And I learned that the most dangerous hunters aren't the ones who charge. They're the ones who wait. She smiled that same smile that didn't reach her eyes. The beast recognized that. It knew I wasn't prey. What were you then? She considered the question for a long moment. Competition, she said finally. The word hung in the air like a verdict. We returned to the Vraksh homeworld as failures by traditional measure. No trophy, no kill, no glory. But I filed a report with the Confederacy that night, and I made sure every word was documented in the official records. The human observer demonstrated hunting capabilities that exceed standard parameters. Recommend further study. Recommend extreme caution in future human engagements. They do not hunt like us. They hunt like something that learned to beat us at our own philosophy. Asterisk 3 weeks later, I received a private message from Dr. Okoye. Just 3 words. Thank you for listening. Asterisk, I never saw her again. But I think about her every time we plan a hunt, every time we follow the old protocols, every time we assume our traditions make us superior. Because somewhere in the galaxy, there's a human with a notebook, watching us, learning us, waiting for the moment when she needs to prove that the quietest predator is the one you never hear coming. And when that moment arrives, we won't even know we're prey until it's already over. 4 years after the Kethril hunt, I received a second message from Dr. Kia Okoye. This one was longer. Official. Routed through Galactic Conservation Collective channels with encryption protocols I'd never seen before. The kind that make intelligence operatives nervous. Hunt Captain Thorvik. I need a favor. It involves breaking several treaties, possibly starting a diplomatic incident, and almost certainly getting us both killed. Interested? Asterisk, I stared at the message for 3 full minutes. Then I typed when and where. The coordinates led to a border station in the Keshri exclusion zone, a stretch of space so thoroughly infested with claim jumpers, pirates, and species the Galactic Council had officially given up trying to govern that the maps just labeled it don't. The station itself was called Fong's Rest, which should tell you everything about the kind of people who frequented it. I arrived with a light escort. 3 ships, 20 hunters, all of them volunteers who remembered the Kethril hunt and wanted another chance to understand what Dr. Okoye had been doing when she stood in front of that beast and made it blink first. We found her in a bar that smelled like benzene and regret. She looked exactly the same. Same gray jumpsuit, same fabric strip holding her hair back, same worn satchel with those primitive paper notebooks spilling out the top. The only difference was a scar across her left forearm that hadn't been there before. clean, surgical, the kind you get from someone who knows exactly how to make a point without killing you. She was sitting alone at a corner table, eating something that looked like it had been food before someone committed war crimes against it, and reading a data pad with the kind of focus that made everyone else in the bar instinctively leave her alone. I sat down across from her. She didn't look up. You brought too many people. You said it would be dangerous. I said it would almost certainly get us killed. There's a difference. She set down the data pad. Her eyes did that thing again. Scanned me, cataloged changes, made calculations I couldn't follow. You've been training. Combat drills, close quarters scenarios. Your reaction times improved by 0.3 seconds since the Kethril. You can tell that from looking at me. You shifted your weight twice when you sat down. Old pattern was once. You're compensating for new muscle memory. She picked up her fork, stabbed something that might have been protein. Also, Vorn standing outside the door, making the throat click he does when he's nervous, which means you brought him, which means you've been talking about me. I turned around. Vorn was indeed standing at the entrance, trying very hard to look casual and failing spectacularly. How did you? I can hear his respiratory pattern from here. It's distinctive. She ate whatever was on her fork without changing expression. You want to know why I called you? That will be helpful. Dr. Okoye pulled out one of her notebooks. Not the worn one from before, a new one, this one bound in something that looked like synthetic leather, but moved wrong, like it was remembering being alive. She opened it to a page covered in drawings that made my spine ridge contract. Ships. Hundreds of them. Not standard commercial designs. These were Predator class, the kind you see in archive footage from the Extinction Wars, all angles and weapon ports, and the sort of aerodynamic profile that says I was built to chase you until you stop running. The Krev Dominion, she said. I knew the name. Everyone did. The Krev were what happened when a species got very good at killing and decided to make it their entire economic model. They didn't conquer worlds, they harvested them, took everything valuable, left the rest as debris, and moved on. The Galactic Council had been trying to stop them for 2 centuries and had mostly succeeded in proving that strongly worded condemnations don't mean much to people with planet cracker weapons. They've been expanding into the outer reaches, Dr. Okoye continued. 3 new systems in the last rotation. 2 of them were inhabited. One of them was my home. The way she said it made the temperature in the bar drop. I'm sorry, don't be. My family evacuated 6 months before the Krev arrived. I made sure of it. She turned the page. More drawings. Bodies this time. Detailed anatomical sketches of Krev physiology, exoskeleton structure, neural clusters, respiratory systems. But 17,000 other people didn't get out. The Krev don't take prisoners. They process biomass. I'd heard the reports. Processed was the clinical term. The reality involved industrial extractors and screaming that could be heard from orbit. The council won't intervene, she said. Krev technology is too advanced. Their fleets are too large. And they've been very careful to only hit targets that don't have powerful allies. She looked at me. Your species has a treaty with the Krev. Non abolition pact. Signed 40 years ago. I know. If you help me, you'll be violating that treaty. I know. The Confederacy will disavow you. You'll lose your rank, your position, probably your family claim. I know. She closed the notebook. Why would you risk that? I thought about the Kethril hunt. About standing in that bone field, watching her walk toward the rendering beast with empty hands and absolute certainty. About learning that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy wasn't the loudest roar. Because you taught me that hunting isn't about glory, I said. It's about knowing your prey better than they know themselves. I leaned forward. And I want to know what happens when the quietest predator decides to stop watching and start killing. Dr. Okoye smiled. It still didn't reach her eyes. Good, she said, because we're going to need a ship. The plan was insane. Not complex insane. Not high-risk insane. Just fundamentally, philosophically insane in a way that suggested Dr. Okoye had spent 4 years thinking about this and had concluded that the only rational response to the Krev Dominion was to behave completely irrationally. We're going to steal one of their harvest ships, she explained, spreading out a schematic on the table. Walk right into their primary staging facility, take a ship, and fly it out. Vorn, who joined us after giving up on pretending he wasn't eavesdropping, made it sound like someone choking on their own disbelief. The staging facility has 40,000 Krev soldiers. 43,200, Dr. Okoye corrected. But most of them are logistics personnel. Only about 6,000 combat rated. She tapped the schematic. And they're all expecting threats from outside. No one's ever tried to steal from the inside before. Because it's suicide. No, it's improbable. She pulled out another notebook, this one filled with what looked like shift schedules and personnel rotations. Suicide implies no chance of success. This has approximately a 9.3% chance of working. That's still suicide. That's better odds than my family had when they evacuated. Her voice didn't change. Still soft. Still calm. But something in it made Vorn take a step back. The Krev think they're untouchable. They've spent 2 centuries building a reputation that makes entire sectors flee at the sight of their ships. They don't expect anyone to fight back. Because fighting back doesn't work, I said. It doesn't work the way everyone else has been trying it. Dr. Okoye closed the notebook. The Council sends fleets. Big, obvious, honorable engagements where everyone follows the rules of war, and the Krev win because they have better ships. She looked at me. But you know what happens when you send a single human who doesn't care about honor or rules or fighting fair? What? You find out that the scariest thing isn't the biggest weapon. She stood up. It's the one you didn't know was pointed at you. We spent 3 days preparing. Dr. Okoye provided detailed intelligence on Krev operations, schedules, security protocols, commander personalities, supply chain vulnerabilities. She'd been studying them for 4 years, the same way she'd studied us during the Kethril hunt, except this time she wasn't looking for behavioral patterns. She was looking for weaknesses. Krev military doctrine prioritizes overwhelming force, she explained, showing us surveillance footage of their operations. They don't do subtlety. Every engagement is maximum firepower, complete destruction, absolute victory. It's effective, but it makes them predictable. How do we exploit that? Krell asked. By making them think they're winning. Dr. Okoye pulled up a schematic of the staging facility. The harvest ships dock here in the Central Bay. Security is tight during arrival and departure, but once a ship is docked and processing begins, most of the guards move to the perimeter. The Krev assumed no one would be stupid enough to board a ship that's actively surrounded by 43,000 soldiers. We would have to be stupid, Vorn muttered. Or we'd have to be something they've never encountered before. Dr. Okoye looked at me. How many of your hunters can pass for cargo handlers? It took me a second to understand what she was asking. You want us to infiltrate as workers. The Krev use contract labor for non-combat roles. Mostly species they've subjugated but haven't processed yet, keeps costs down, maintains fear, standard imperial economics. She pulled up an image of Krev cargo uniforms. We get hired, we board a harvest ship during processing, we wait until the shift change, and we take the ship. And the 43,000 soldiers? We'll assume we're cargo thieves. Standard response protocol for theft is to lock down the facility and conduct sweep searches. That gives us approximately 11 minutes before they realize we're not stealing cargo. She smiled. By then, we'll be in hyperspace. Krell stared at her. You've timed this down to the minute. Down to the second. She pulled out yet another notebook. This one filled with chronological flowcharts that looked like they'd been stress tested against every possible variable. I've been running simulations for 2 years. 17,000 variations. This is the only one that works. Only 9.3% of the time, Vorn reminded her. 9.3 is the probability accounting for unknown variables and human error. Dr. Okoye closed the notebook. If we execute perfectly, it's closer to 72%. And if we don't execute perfectly, she met his eyes. Then we become statistics in the Krev processing logs. Her voice was still soft, still calm. But at least we'll have tried something that scared them. We infiltrated the staging facility on a cargo hauler carrying processed biomass from the Krev's latest harvest. Turns out the Dominion is always hiring, and they don't do background checks when you're applying to shovel what used to be people into containment vats. Dr. Okoye was right about the uniforms, right about the schedules, right about the fact that the Krev don't look twice at contract laborers who keep their heads down and do the work. We spent 2 days loading cargo, 2 days watching harvest ships come and go, 2 days listening to Krev overseers talk about their latest conquests like they were discussing livestock yields. Dr. Okoye didn't react, just kept working, kept taking notes in a pocket-sized notebook she'd hidden in her uniform, kept tracking patrol patterns and shift rotations and the exact moment when the guards would be distracted enough for us to make our move. On the 3rd day, a harvest ship designated Skinner of Worlds docked for routine processing. Dr. Okoye signaled. We moved. The thing about infiltration is that it only works if you commit completely to the lie. You can't hesitate, can't second guess. You have to become the role so thoroughly that anyone watching sees exactly what they expect to see. Dr. Okoye had explained this during prep, speaking in that same clinical tone she used for everything, like she was describing chemical reactions instead of identity erasure. Humans are persistence predators, she'd said, but we're also social mimics. We learn to survive by blending into groups, adopting behaviors, becoming whoever we needed to be to avoid being eaten. She'd looked at each of us. You're apex predators. You've never had a hide. But I've spent my entire life learning how to be invisible. Now, walking through the staging facility in stolen uniforms, I understood what she meant. She moved like cargo handlers moved, slow, tired, resentful. Shoulders hunched, eyes down. Every gesture screamed, I hate this job, but I need the credits. The Krev guard scanned her badge, glanced at her face, and waved her through without a second thought. Because she'd made herself forgettable. We boarded the Skinner of Worlds through the cargo access port, mixed in with a work crew of 20 other contract laborers. The ship's interior was exactly as brutal as you'd expect from a species that turned genocide into an industry. All metal corridors, and functional lighting, and the faint smell of disinfectant that couldn't quite cover the organic residue from previous harvests. Dr. Okoye led us to a maintenance junction 3 levels below the main deck. We wait here, she whispered. Shift change happens in 7 minutes. When the crew rotates, we'll have a 4-minute window where the command deck is understaffed. And then we take the ship. She pulled out a small device. Looked like a standard data spike, but I'd watch her modify it over the past 3 days, adding components I didn't recognize. This will override the bridge lockouts and give us control of helm functions. Once we're in hyperspace, the Krev can't follow. Their ships are faster, but they're designed for fleet engagements, not pursuit. Krell checked his weapons. What about the crew currently on board? Skeleton detail during processing. 47 Krev, mostly engineers and cargo supervisors. They'll be spread across 11 decks. Dr. Okoye's voice was completely flat. We eliminate them quietly. No alarms. No communications. They disappear, and the facility assumes they're still working. You want us to kill 47 people in 4 minutes. I want you to kill 23. I'll handle the rest. The way she said it made Vorn's spine ridge extend. You're not a soldier. No. Dr. Okoye adjusted the data spike. I'm a researcher, but I spent 4 years studying Krev anatomy, psychology, and operational protocols. I know where their neural clusters are located. I know which toxins work on their respiratory systems. I know how to kill them efficiently. She looked at us, and for the first time since the Kethril hunt, I saw something other than clinical calm in her eyes. Rage. Controlled. Focused. Patient. But rage nonetheless. The Krev processed 17,000 people from my world, she said. Turned them into industrial feedstock. Recorded the screams for psychological warfare databases. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't rise. I've listened to those recordings. Every single one. Learned to recognize voices. Memorize names. She pulled out a different notebook, small, bound in black synthetic material, edges worn from constant handling. This is everyone who died. She didn't open it. I carry their names with me. And when I kill the crew on this ship, I'm going to think about every single person the Krev processed and know that this is the closest thing to justice they'll ever get. The maintenance junction was silent. Then, Krell said, very quietly, "Tell us what to do." The shift change happened exactly when Dr. Okoye predicted. We moved through the ship like ghosts, silent, efficient, methodical. The Krev crew never saw us coming. Most of them died without making a sound, neural clusters severed before they could register pain, let alone raise an alarm. Dr. Okoye killed 9 of them herself. I watch her do it. Watch her approach each target with that same slow, steady pace she'd used during the Kethril hunt. Watch her use weapons she'd built from maintenance supplies. Improvised toxin injectors, monofilament wire, a shaped charge made from cleaning solvents, and timing circuits. She didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, just executed each kill with the precision of someone who'd practiced this in their mind 1,000 times, and was now simply performing what they'd already perfected. The last one was a cargo supervisor who'd been part of the team that processed her homeworld. She made that one slow. Not torture, not cruelty, just slow enough that he understood what was happening before the toxin stopped his heart. "This is for the Okoye family," she whispered, leaning close enough that he could see her face. "And the 16,999 others whose names I carry." Then she stepped back and let him die. For minutes and 12 seconds after the shift change, we reached the bridge. Dr. Okoye plugged in a data spike. The ship's systems unlocked with a soft chime that sounded obscene in the silence. "Helm control transferred," she announced, sliding into the pilot seat like she'd done this before. "Engines online. Hyperspace calculations loading." Outside, through the viewport, I could see the staging facility. 43,000 Krev soldiers, hundreds of ships, the entire infrastructure of an Imperial war machine designed to crush resistance before it started. They had no idea we were here. "Power to engines," Dr. Okoye said. The Skinner of Worlds began to lift. Alarms started screaming. "They've noticed," Krell reported, monitoring communications. "Facility lockdown initiated. Combat ships combating. Hyperspace window ready," Dr. Okoye said. Her hands moved across the controls with absolute confidence. "Jump in 15 seconds." The view screen lit up with incoming fire. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, everything the Krev could throw at a ship they thought was being stolen by opportunistic thieves. 10 seconds. The hull shuddered. Shields held. Barely. 5 seconds. A Krev destroyer moved to intercept, weapons charging for a broadside that would vaporize us. Dr. Okoye looked at me. Smiled. "I told you 9.3%. She triggered the jump. The universe folded. We emerged in empty space 3 systems away, traveling at velocities that would take the Krev hours to match, even if they knew where we'd gone. Dr. Okoye shut down the engines, transferred helm control to Krell, and stood up from the pilot's seat like she'd just finished a routine transport run. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "Now, comes the interesting part." Vorn stared at her. That was Phase 1. Stealing the ship was always the easy part. She pulled out her notebook, the one with the Krev fleet schematics. "Now we have to make them afraid." She walked to the communications console, keyed in a specific frequency, and began transmitting. Not to the Krev, to everyone else. "This is Dr. Kia Okoye, broadcasting on all open channels. I am currently in command of the Krev Harvest ship Skinner of Worlds, stolen from the primary staging facility in the Keshri exclusion zone, with 0 casualties to my team and complete elimination of the Krev crew." Her voice was calm, professional, the same tone she'd used to explain spinecrawler mating seasons. "I'm transmitting this message to demonstrate a simple fact. The Krev Dominion is not invincible. They can be infiltrated. They can be beaten. They can be made to bleed." She pulled up the ship's logs, broadcast them across every available frequency. "I'm also transmitting complete operational data on Krev fleet movements, supply chains, personnel rotations, and security protocols. Everything I've learned over 4 years of observation." She paused. "To the Krev listening, you process 17,000 people from my world. You thought no one would retaliate because you've spent 2 centuries teaching the galaxy to be afraid. But fear is just information incorrectly processed. She leaned toward the microphone. And I've been studying you long enough to know exactly what you're afraid of. Another pause. You're afraid of being prey. She cut the transmission. The bridge was silent. Then Krell asked, very quietly, what happens now? Dr. Okoye looked out at the stars. Now, she said, we wait for them to come hunting. And when they do, we teach them what it feels like to be the ones who are being watched. She pulled out the notebook with 17,000 names, opened it to the first page, and began to read. The Krev arrived in force exactly 19 hours after Dr. Okoye's broadcast. 12 warships. Battle class. The kind they send when they want to make an example that gets recorded for the history databases and played at military academies as a case study in overwhelming response. We were ready. Not because we had superior firepower. We didn't. The Skinner of Worlds was a harvest vessel designed to process biomass and haul cargo, not fight fleet engagements. In a straight battle, we'd last maybe 40 seconds before being reduced to component atoms and regret. But Dr. Okoye hadn't spent 4 years studying the Krev to fight them fairly. They'll send scouts first, she said, watching the sensor displays with that same clinical focus she applied to everything. Standard doctrine. 3 light cruisers in a delta formation, scanning for traps, ready to report back to the main fleet. How do you know? Vorn asked. Because they've used that exact formation in 83% of their engagements over the past decade. The Krev don't adapt. They perfect. Find a doctrine that works, and then execute it flawlessly every single time. She pulled up a tactical display. Which means if you understand their doctrine, you understand their next move before they make it. Krell studied the display. 3 scouts. We can't fight 3 cruisers. We don't need to fight them. Dr. Okoye's fingers moved across the console, pulling up ship systems I didn't recognize. Looked like standard maintenance functions, except she'd modified them in ways that made my spine ridge itch. We just need to make them think they found us. She triggered something. The Skinner of Worlds began broadcasting a distress signal. Not our distress signal. The Krev's. Emergency beacon, Dr. Okoye explained. Standard Krev protocol for disabled ships. Automated transmission, repeating on all frequencies, include ship ID and last known coordinates. She adjusted the signal strength. The scouts will receive it, assume we're damaged and drifting, and move to intercept. And then we kill them. She said the same way she'd say then, we have breakfast, completely matter of fact, but not with weapons. The moment we fire, the main fleet will know our exact position and capabilities. She pulled out one of her notebooks, this one filled with technical schematics that looked like they'd been hand-copied from engineering manuals and then annotated with her own observations. Krev ships run on fusion cores with redundant containment systems. Standard safety protocols prevent cascade failures even under combat damage. She tapped a specific diagram. But those protocols assume external threats. No one's ever tried to sabotage the containment from inside the ship's own systems. You're going to make their scouts self-destruct. I'm going to convince their scouts' automated safety systems that they're experiencing a catastrophic containment breach and need to emergency vent their cores. She looked at me. The systems will do it themselves. All I have to do is provide the right false data. That's elegant. She almost smiled. I learned from the rendering beast. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make your opponent defeat themselves. The scouts arrived 17 minutes later. 3 light cruisers, exactly as predicted, moving in perfect delta formation, weapons charged but not firing. They scanned us, confirmed the distress signal, and began approach vectors. Dr. Okoye watched them come. Hands on the console, breathing slow and even waiting. They're hailing us, Krell reported. Ignore it. Let them think communications are damaged. She pulled up a new interface. Looked like a standard sensor array, but the code running underneath was something else entirely. How close? 2,000 kilometers. Not close enough. I need line of sight for the transmission spike. 1,500 kilometers. 1,000. Now, Dr. Okoye said. She triggered the transmission. It wasn't a weapon. Wasn't even hostile code, technically. Just a carefully crafted data package designed to look like legitimate diagnostic information from a damaged ship's automated systems, reporting false readings that would make the receiving ship's safety protocols believe they were experiencing an imminent containment failure. The kind of failure that required immediate emergency core venting. The kind of failure that, if not addressed within 3 seconds, would cause a fusion detonation that could vaporize a small moon. The Krev Scout's systems received the data, analyzed it, believed it, and did exactly what they were programmed to do. 3 emergency core vents triggered simultaneously. 3 fusion reactors, dumping their entire energy load into space in a desperate attempt to prevent catastrophic failure. 3 Krev cruisers suddenly, without power, weapons, shields, or life support. Drifting. Dead. Dr. Okoye watched them go dark on the sensors. 19 seconds, she said. New record. She turned away from the console, like she'd just finished grading homework. Vorn stared at the tactical display. You just killed 3 ships without firing a shot. I didn't kill them. Their own safety systems did. She pulled out the notebook with 17,000 names, made a small mark. That's 647 Krev crew. I need 16,353 more. The way she said it made the bridge temperature drop. The main Krev fleet detected the scouts' power loss 8 minutes later. Their response was immediate and predictable. 9 remaining warships, full combat acceleration, weapons hot, ready to obliterate whatever had dared to attack their forces. Dr. Okoye had already moved us. Not far, just enough to break line of sight with the dead scouts while staying close enough to monitor the fleet's approach. We watched them arrive, watched them scan the area, watched them find their dead ships, and realized something was very wrong. They're confused, Krell reported. Communications chatter suggests they think it was a systems failure. Good. Dr. Okoye was already working on the next phase, hands moving across controls with absolute confidence. Confusion is useful. Makes people look in the wrong direction. What's the next direction? She pulled up a star chart. There's a debris field 16 light minutes from here. Remains of a gas giant that collapsed 6,000 years ago. The Krev use it as a navigation waypoint. She highlighted a specific region. We're going to hide there and make them come looking for us. Why would they come looking? Dr. Okoye smiled that smile that never reached her eyes. Because I'm going to make them think we have something they want. She transmitted a second message. This one wasn't broadcast on all channels. This one was tight beam, encrypted with Krev military codes, sent directly to the fleet commander's personal console. I didn't ask how she'd obtained the commander's access codes. The message was simple. The human known as Dr. Kia Okoye possesses complete intelligence on Krev military operations, including classified fleet movements, strategic targets, and personnel records. This data is currently stored aboard the stolen vessel Skinner of Worlds. If the vessel is destroyed, the data will be automatically transmitted to all Galactic Council members and allied species. Recommend capture, not destruction. Asterisk, she cut the transmission. You just told them not to kill us, Vorn said. I told them they can't afford to kill us. Dr. Okoye initiated the jump to the debris field. Now, they have to capture us intact. Which means boarding actions, not bombardment. Why is that better? Because boarding actions are personal. Close quarters. The kind of fighting where technology matters less than psychology. She looked at me. And I've spent 4 years learning how the Krev think. The debris field was perfect. Thousands of kilometers of shattered rock and frozen volatiles, dense enough to scatter sensors, but navigable if you knew the safe routes. Dr. Okoye had mapped the entire region during her preparation, identified hiding spots, kill zones, and exactly 17 different ways to die if you took a wrong turn. We went deep into the field and waited. The Krev fleet arrived 6 hours later. They didn't charge in. That would have been tactically unsound, and the Krev were nothing if not tactically sound. Instead, they established a perimeter, deployed scout drones, and began systematic grid search patterns designed to flush out prey while minimizing risk to their ships. Standard doctrine. Predictable. Dr. Okoye destroyed the first wave of drones with modified mining charges. Simple chemical explosives she'd built from the ship's maintenance supplies, rigged to look like natural debris until they got within proximity range. 12 drones. 12 detonations. The Krev sent more drones. Dr. Okoye destroyed those too. They're getting frustrated, Krell reported. Communications indicate the fleet commander is considering a full saturation bombardment. No, he's not. Dr. Okoye didn't look up from her work. He can't risk destroying the intelligence data. He'll send boarding teams. She checked her chronometer. Estimate 47 minutes until first deployment. How can you possibly know? Because that's how long it takes to brief boarding teams, equip them with appropriate gear, and deploy via assault shuttle at maximum safe speed through a debris field. She pulled out a different notebook, this one containing hand-drawn maps of the ship's interior, which gives us 47 minutes to prepare. She looked at all of us. The Krev are going to board this ship. They're going to sweep every corridor, every compartment, every maintenance junction. They're going to follow their doctrine perfectly because that's what they do. She closed the notebook. And when they do, we're going to teach them why humans are the scariest thing in the galaxy. Ow! Dr. Okoye pulled out a small canister from her satchel, unlabeled, filled with something that moved like liquid, but gave off faint vapor trails that made my olfactory sensors burn. What is that? Vorn asked. Fear, she said. Distilled. The Krev boarding teams arrived 46 minutes later. 12 shuttles. 200 soldiers. Full combat armor, heavy weapons, bioscanners calibrated to detect any living organism larger than a maintenance rat. They breached the ship in 6 locations simultaneously. Textbook multi-point entry, designed to prevent defenders from concentrating force. Dr. Okoye had predicted all 6 breach points, had prepared for all 6. The first team made it 3 meters into the ship before the corridor filled with the vapor from Dr. Okoye's canister. It wasn't toxic, wasn't even harmful, technically. It just smelled exactly like Krev fear pheromones. The biological response was immediate. The Krev soldiers' nervous systems registered the scent, interpreted it as a threat signal from their own kind, and triggered the fight-or-flight response that evolution had hardwired into their species over millions of years. They panicked, started firing at shadows, at each other, at nothing. Dr. Okoye had weaponized their own biology against them. Team 1 is down, she reported calmly, monitoring biosigns. Team 2 entering Junction 4. Deploy Charge 7. Krell triggered the charge. Another improvised explosive, this one designed to collapse the corridor without breaching the hull. Team 2 was crushed under 6 tons of structural plating. Team 3 approaching engineering. Vorn, you're up. Vorn moved into position. He'd spent the preparation time setting up crossfire angles and makeshift fortifications, turning a simple maintenance bay into a killing field. Team 3 walked right into it. They died professionally, following doctrine, covering each other, executing retreat protocols exactly as their training demanded. It didn't matter. Vorn had studied the same doctrine Dr. Okoye had provided. Knew every tactic, every formation, every response pattern. He killed them by being exactly where their doctrine said he wouldn't be. Teams 4, 5, and 6 fared no better. Dr. Okoye had turned the entire ship into a psychological maze. Every corridor designed to exploit Krev instincts. Every junction rigged with traps that played on their evolutionary responses. Every engagement calculated to make them question whether they were fighting enemies or being hunted by something they didn't understand. By the time the last team died, the Krev fleet commander was screaming orders over the comm system. Dr. Okoye listened to him rage for exactly 30 seconds. Then, she opened a channel. Commander Zektal, she said, voice soft and calm. You're losing. The comm went silent. Then, you killed 200 of my soldiers. I killed 200 of your soldiers without firing a single shot from this ship's weapons. Using nothing but mining equipment, chemical compounds available in standard maintenance supplies, and an understanding of your species psychology. She pulled up a tactical display. You have 9 ships for 1,000 crew and enough firepower to glass a continent. And you can't stop one human with a notebook. We will destroy you. No, you won't. Because I have the intelligence data you need, and destroying me means losing it. Dr. Okoye's voice was still soft, still calm. You're trapped, Commander. Every decision you make from this point forward is one I've already predicted and prepared for. You're bluffing. Am I? She transmitted a data package, a small one, just a sample. That's the complete tactical profile of your flagship, including crew rotations, weapon systems, and a vulnerability in your shield generator that you don't know about because it was introduced during last month's maintenance cycle. Silence. I've been studying you for 4 years, Commander. I know your doctrine better than you do. I know your crew's morale reports. I know you have a son in the officer academy who's failing his tactics courses. She leaned toward the microphone. I know everything about you. And you know nothing about me. What do you want? I want you to be afraid. Dr. Okoye's voice dropped to a whisper. I want you to go back to the Dominion and tell them that humans are not prey. We're not primitives. We're not resources to be processed. She paused. With a thing that learns how you think, adapts to how you fight, and then beats you with your own strengths turned into weaknesses. Another pause. You killed 17,000 people from my world. I will never forget that. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure the Krev Dominion never forgets it either. She terminated the connection. The Krev fleet held position for 6 hours. Then they withdrew. Not retreating, the Krev don't retreat. Just leaving. Breaking contact. Refusing to engage. Because Dr. Okoye had done something no one in 2 centuries had managed. She'd made them uncertain. And uncertainty is fear with a degree in philosophy. We didn't celebrate. Dr. Okoye just marked 17 names in her notebook and started planning the next phase. They'll come back, she said. Different tactics. Different approach. They'll study this engagement and adapt. Will it work? I asked. Probably. She closed the notebook. The Krev are good at what they do. But I'm better at learning than they are at teaching. She looked out at the stars. This isn't victory. This is message delivery. I needed them to understand that humans aren't defeated by superior force. We're defeated by making us stop caring. She pulled out the notebook with 17,000 names. And I will never stop caring about this. 3 months later, the Krev Dominion issued a policy directive. Avoid human-controlled space. Minimize contact with human vessels. And under no circumstances engage human targets without council oversight. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't even an admission of defeat. It was recognition. The galaxy's most feared predator species had encountered something they didn't understand, couldn't predict, and couldn't kill efficiently. And that scared them more than any fleet ever could. Dr. Okoye received the news while we were resupplying at a neutral station in the outer reaches. She read the policy directive twice. Then she pulled out her notebook, turned to a blank page, and started writing. What are you working on? I asked. The next phase. She didn't look up. The Krev backed down, but there are 17 other species in the galaxy running similar operations. Smaller scale, lower profile, but same philosophy. She made a note. I'm going to study them all, learn their patterns, find their weaknesses. That will take years. I have years. She closed the notebook. And every species that processes populations for profit needs to learn the same lesson. Humans remember. Humans adaptado. And humans are very, very patient. She looked at me with those dark, still eyes. The Krev thought they were the apex predator. They thought overwhelming force was the answer to everything. She stood up. But the scariest thing in a galaxy isn't the one that roars the loudest. It's the one that watches you until it knows exactly how to make you stop. I thought about the Kethril hunt, about watching her stand in front of the rendering beast with empty hands and absolute certainty, about learning that hunting wasn't about glory or strength or tradition. It was about information. What happens now? I asked. Dr. Okoye adjusted her satchel, checked her notebooks, and headed toward the station's exit. Now, she said, I find the next target, and I teach them what it means to be prey. She walked away, moving with that same slow, steady pace she'd maintained since the day I met her. Quiet, patient, watching, and somewhere in the galaxy, 17 species running industrial genocide operations were about to discover that the worst predators don't roar. They wait, they learn, they adapt, and then, when you've forgotten they're there, when you think you're safe, when you've convinced yourself that you're the apex, and nothing can touch you, that's when they strike. I never saw Dr. Kia Okoye again, but I hear about her. Reports filter through intelligence networks about operations that collapse for no apparent reason. Species that suddenly withdraw from territories they'd held for decades. Pirates and slavers and genocidal empires that just stop. No vates, no tritis, no explanations. Just empty ships drifting in space with dead crews and no signs of external attack. And occasionally, in the wreckage, someone finds a small notebook. Black synthetic binding, well-worn edges, filled with names. 17,000 of them, to be exact. Each one a person who died screaming while the galaxy looked away. Each one a reminder that somewhere out there, a human with a notebook and infinite patience is making sure those deaths are never forgotten. Making sure the predators learn what it feels like to be hunted. The Vrach Confederacy still conducts the Kethril hunt every year. We still chase the rendering beast across the rift. We still mount trophies in our great halls and sing songs of glory and tradition. But we do it differently now. We watch the shadows more carefully. We question our assumptions. We remember that the deadliest hunter isn't the one with the loudest roar. It's the one you never see coming. And if you're very unlucky, if you've done something terrible enough to warrant her attention, the last thing you'll ever hear is the soft sound of a notebook closing, and a voice quiet as falling snow, whispering, I learned everything I needed to know about you. Then silence. The kind of silence that comes when the apex predator realizes it was never really at the top of the food chain. Just the loudest. And loud things die first.